no mai hara mai e te whānau. A very, very warm welcome to you this very warm December evening. Welcome to everybody, and thank you for taking your Tuesday evening to join us in our final webinar of 2025. I'm Nicola Bertossi. I'm General Manager at MS Auckland. I'm joined tonight by Catherine Glover, who's a Community Advisor on our team, and also by our wonderful speaker tonight, Fletcher Sunde. Fletcher is a certified meditation coach, and he will talk all about meditation and how it can improve the lives of people generally, and specifically with multiple sclerosis. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your talk tonight, Fletcher. If anybody has any questions, please just pop them into the chat box, and there will be time after Fletcher's talk to ask any questions. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to hand over to our wonderful speaker for tonight, beaming in from a wonderful part of the country as well. Over to you, Fletcher.
Thank you, Nicola. Evening, everyone. Kia ora. My name's Fletcher Sunde. I live on a boat in Russell. That's the situation here. And it's a beautiful evening, so I thought I'd do this outside. I hope you don't mind. I'm sure you're having a beautiful evening wherever you are. Look, I've got a little bit of a presentation for you guys. So I'll just sort of go through that. I'll stream that. I'll share my screen, and we'll go through that. I've tried to specifically look for research and that relates to MS specifically. So, look, we'll go through that little journey. We're going to talk about meditation and how it can help with MS. Then I'm going to give an opportunity for some questions. I'm probably only going to speak for 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so, because I also want to give that's my cat. Also give an opportunity for actually do a meditation. So I'm planning to do a 15-minute meditation with you guys at the end of this. Let me share my screen, and then we will get into it. Tell me, I suppose I can't see anybody, so I'm going to assume this is working as we trialed it before. So, here we go. Tell me if it's not, Nicola. Who am I? My name's Fletcher Sunde. The surname some of you may recognize because my mum, Maria, is part of your network. She has MS and she is tuned in here somewhere. So that's kind of how I came to, one of the avenues that I came to be presenting to you this evening. So, I live up here. My background's actually in marine science and biology. I studied at the University of Auckland, got a BSc and an MSc in biology, and a typo in there too. And I spent many years working in conservation and biology. And about 2015, I started taking up meditation. I came to meditation through depression and addiction, and basically it changed my life. A friend, flatmate at the time, she could see that I was in a real troubled spot, and she was a yoga teacher, and she said, "Hey, why don't you try meditation? It can help." And I actually downloaded an app. I did it that way, and I meditated for the first time. The 15 minutes went by in a flash, and essentially I've been doing it every day since then. Nobody's perfect. I don't do it every day. But I'll talk to you at the end. The gold of meditation comes from daily practice. It's really where the benefits can be made. So, I've been meditating for just over 10 years now. And I started doing this. I left my job in conservation. Well, left my job in conservation a couple times in order to sort of pursue this track, this career, because it's very interesting to me how the mind works. And I think it's true that uh, while I have a passion and a love for nature and conservation, environmentalism is it's in some regards it's a luxury that it comes when we have a stable mind. If we are in a place where we are just not coping, not dealing with what's going on in our immediate lives, well, how can we make responsible environmental decisions? How can we make responsible decisions about anything? So it was a real gift that when I started meditating, I just loved it. And so I wanted to start sharing that with people. And so that's why I started my business, Meditate with Fletch. I started teaching when COVID struck. I was one of the management team at work, and I just helped staff go through that process. It was a very stressful time for everybody. And recently, in the past sort of 12, 18 months, I've quit my job again up here in Russell to make this my full-time thing. So that's why that's my background. Now, there's a note down at the bottom there. I have studied or read a lot of what's called Dharma. Um, Now, I'm not going to, the focus on my presentation tonight is quite secular. I'm really going to focus on the science behind and the research that's been done on meditation. But there's a whole component of Dharma or Buddhist philosophy, which sits alongside meditation. And you can choose to go into that or not. The Buddhists, we borrow meditation essentially from the Buddhists and from ancient Indian traditions. They've been doing it for 2,500, 3,000 years. So a lot of good stuff comes from there. And so whether you choose to engage in Dhamma or not, it's up to you. But basically, it provides a map of the mind. It's the amazing thing about Eastern traditions is that they really went inside and looked internally, and there's some really fascinating stuff that goes along with it. Okay. So when we talk about meditation and MS, yeah, we know that there is no cure for MS, right? And so we can't fool ourselves to thinking that there is a cure and that somehow meditation by mastering the mind is going to give us that possibility. But it's not just as simple as it's not if we just call meditation something like, thinking positively, it really undervalues it. It really doesn't hit the nail on the head at all. And so, what we're talking about is really a set of practical skills that help us change our neurology, like literally help us change the architecture of the brain and how we respond to things like stress, pain, and uncertainty in our lives. So, it's really about framing, changing how we think, changing how we approach life itself. So I'm just going to go through a few examples um, well, I'm going to be honest, had some help from AI to pull some really specific examples of research that's been done on MS specifically with regard to pain, fatigue, mood, mental health, and cognitive issues as well. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about acceptance before we move into, and sleep problems before we move into our questions and meditation session. So, firstly, I just want to cover, well, what actually is meditation? Because there's a lot of different ideas around what meditation actually is. And how I define meditation is a training regime for the mind. Just like we go to the gym and we exercise muscles and we become stronger, we can meditate and excuse me, we become stronger, more resilient in the mind. What we're basically training is what we call skillful mental states. What do I mean by that? At every single moment in life, your mind is in a particular type of state. It's what we can term either skillful or unskillful. A skillful mental state is a mental state that's going to lead to the things that we want to happen in our lives. It's going to lead to unfolding, liberation, acceptance. I'm pretty sure most of you guys will be sitting there right now in a pretty open uh, state of wanting to learn and understand, right? That's a skillful mental state. You're letting stuff in. You're allowing yourself to be, uh, new information comes in and you're developing your mind. If, on the other hand, you might be sitting there with a very sort of judgmental, oh, I don't trust this. That's what we would call, and I'm sure most of you aren't, that's what we might call an unskillful mental state where we're blocking new information from coming in. Right. So really what we are developing here. And there's all sorts of different skillful mental states, things like compassion, forgiveness, concentration, awareness itself. And so that's what meditation is. It's a training regime for the mind. There's lots of different types of meditation. You might have heard of transcendental meditation, yoga nidra, vipassana, mindfulness itself. And so what my focus really is on mindfulness meditation, which means aspects of the present moment. So we're always coming back time and time again to the present moment. And I'll explain what that is a little bit later on. Now, unavoidably, meditation is also a journey of personal discovery because we start to look inside and we start to unravel ourselves and look at ourselves and actually understand more fully what's going on. We are, unfortunately, we are robots, right? We get into these habits and we just keep on doing them and time again. And so often we are unaware that we are doing these things in these ways that lead to the same things happening in our lives time and time again. And so by developing awareness of ourselves, developing awareness of what we're doing, we go through this journey of self-discovery, of personal change. And that's really where that Dharma stuff that I was talking about comes in. So the science. So the big picture of the science, according to research, as I said, specifically done with MS, is that uh, meditation can help in many, many parts of our lives. So many trials have been done, or quite a few trials and analyses. And in the literature, there's lots of reviews of research onto MS. And essentially, what the research shows is that while changes aren't necessarily huge, they are not necessarily massive changes that you might see. There is a consistent, the studies show consistently that there is improvements in the quality of life of people who suffer MS as a result of meditation. Here it's termed got this MBIs, mindfulness-based interventions. What that means, right? So there's a bunch of research that's been done, and this is just an overview. But as an overview, meditation and even short amounts of meditation. So most of these studies have only been done over sort of 6 to 8 week courses. So in 6 to 8 weeks, most of them showed significant increases in quality of life, mental health, and some measures of physical health as well. So it's quite cool. So let's dive into that a little bit deeper. So dealing with pain. This is a big one, right? And I've seen it, with mum firsthand. Um, Pain is a big one, and there's no silver bullet for pain. But what meditation can do is it can help us regulate it, right? What we know is that what we focus on grows. So if we focus on pain, and this is what, if you go and do maybe you might have heard of the Vipassana course. If you go and do a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, which is very intense, you'll learn a lot about dealing with pain and how when we focus on things, we start to grow it. And so what we learn through the meditation is, it's not like you can welcome this pain in that you're dealing with all of the time. It's not like, oh, hey, yeah, come on, I can accept that. But we also don't want to push it away. In the space, we talk a lot about what's called the middle way, which is just sitting with acceptance, sitting with how things are, right? So sitting with just, we learn to just observe the body, observe the sensations for exactly how they are without any judgment, right? So it's accepting the unpleasantness of our situation. And just by accepting it, we start to reduce its impact on us. And if we start to reduce its impact on us, then we start to reduce how it impacts our life and how it controls what we're doing day in, day out. It also helps to stop, I'm going to use the word ruminating quite a bit, right? So ruminating is that when we focus on something and we just go over it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And when we do that, as we entrench those neural pathways, we make those those ways of thinking deeper, right? And so what we're trying to do is, and it ends up in with what we might call catastrophizing. All right, so we can start to undo those neural pathways. We can start to just learn to live with, learn to accept a little bit more. And I know it's really difficult. I'm sitting here as somebody who doesn't have MS and who doesn't suffer with this stuff, and I find this difficult sometimes. As I say, sorry, Mum, I'm gonna use you as an example. But and she says, "Oh, it's just so difficult, Fletch. It's just so difficult." And I'm like, "Yeah, just accept, Mum. Just accept." And it's sometimes it's very it sounds. I'm aware that what's coming out of my mouth sounds very surface level. Oh, it's easy for you to say, just accept. But there is really is what we call this middle way around not pushing away, not necessarily welcoming in. You can't welcome in difficult stuff, but just sitting with and observing exactly how it is right now without any judgment. That's what we try and learn, and that's what we try and engage with when we're doing our meditation. So with regards to anxiety and depression, your meditation, including online programs, has been shown to reduce depression and anxiety with people in MS. As again, effects are moderate. They're not miraculous, and we can't be expecting. I like to call meditation a silver tortoise, not a silver bullet. Excuse me. If you work at it, just piece by piece, chunk by chunk, little bit by little bit, it will have really meaningful effects in our lives. So depression and anxiety is a big one. Depression essentially is a downward spiral of rumination, right? So we think something's bad and then we judge ourselves that it's bad. And then we judge ourselves because we judge ourselves, we feel even worse about it. And so we go down the spiral of rumination. And so rumination happens in a place in the brain called the default mode network, this area that we go back to time and time again, judging and ruminating about things. And meditation has been shown in many studies to help reduce the activity of the default mode network, so the rumination starts to alleviate. So yeah, meditation for people with MS, but generally as well is a brilliant tool for depression and anxiety. It really helps to increase the connectivity across the brain. So many parts of our brain, this is where my real interest lies, I think, are dysregulated. They're out of sync with each other because they're not the oftentimes it's because of all sorts of things like social and environmental factors. Our brain, one part of us thinks that this is the case over here, and another parts of us thinks that it should be like this over here, and then this other part thinks something different as well. And often our brain doesn't talk to each other the different parts of our brain don't talk to each other as well as they could. And so meditation has been shown many times to increase signaling across the brain. Different parts of the brain literally talk to each other more. It's actually a process of integration. Meditate, especially the first sort of stages of our meditation journey. We integrate ourself with ourself, right? We learn to become a more whole, more rounded human being just by looking at the pieces of ourselves. So often the parts of ourselves don't serve us anymore, right? And so meditation gives us the ability to look at those parts and say, oh yeah, I didn't realize I was doing that. Is it good for me? Or no, it's not good for me. Okay, I'm gonna consciously put that to the side. I understand why that's happening for me. I can see the bits and the pieces of that jigsaw puzzle. They're not part of my life anymore. I'm gonna put that over there and I'm gonna start to move on. We have to come back and we have to do that again. That's the training regime. Come back and do it again. We're robots. We need to retrain the robot. But it really does work like that. I can't see my clock. I hope I'm not rambling too much. So, yeah, fatigue and sleep. So, yeah, the data does show that meditation can help people feel less wiped out and sleep more efficiently, even if underlying MS and the neurology associated with the MS hasn't changed. And so this has been shown many times in these studies here. So, yeah, it's interesting. When people come onto my courses, it's often one of the very first things that they say within just a couple of weeks of meditating daily. Oh, hey, I've started to sleep better. And it was funny, when I first started teaching at work many years ago, and one of my colleagues came in and she just said to me one day, she's like, I've just started sleeping way better all of a sudden. And she'd been doing the meditation with me every day. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she goes, I wonder if it's the meditation. I was like, oh, maybe it is. Yeah. So it's really cool because we start to relax, we start to calm ourselves. And we're not so, you know, a big one of the skillful mental states that I talked about that we train ourselves in early on in our meditation, especially is concentration. Right? So concentration is so important. We feel stressed and anxious and worried about things because our mind is scattered all over the place. It's like now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this within the space of 3 seconds. Now, of course, if our mind is scattered all over the place, we're going to feel stressed and anxious, right? We're not designed for, especially this modern world, we're not designed for so much stimulation, you know? So when we develop concentration, we develop the faculty to stay on point, focused on a single thing. And the result of training ourselves to stay focused and on point is less stress because we're just focused on one thing. I mean, it's like when you're on holiday and you've got you got nothing to worry about. Right? It's a similar sort of a thing. Oh, what have we got to do today? We just make lunch, go to the shop, just a couple of things, as opposed to in our daily lives when there's, you know, kids and work and deadlines and all of this stuff going on. The news, the mind is all over the place. Donald Trump, oh no, so concentration is a really important, skillful mental state that we train ourselves in. And because we develop concentration, then we start to sleep better. So, yeah, evidence does suggest that meditation can support attention and processing speed. So it's really important. Meditation trains awareness as well, right? Just generally being aware, right? And being there. And as I said, it's the training regime for the mind. It seems unfortunate to me that there's so much emphasis through school, through society, wherever, around training a healthy physical body. Eat healthy, go to the gym, run, do exercise, whatever it might be. But there isn't an emphasis on training the mind, and training the brain to be better at what it does. So, yeah, there was a study, Coma 2024. They looked at a bunch of different cognitive outcomes in MS as a result of mindfulness interventions, and did find improvements across the board with regard to processing speed and attention. And so awareness and attention, it's a similar thing, similar to concentration. Attention is my attention is here, my concentration is here, and so that's what we're training. And of course, the mind is like a muscle. We can train it. We can become better at it. So that's some of the sort of more physical, you might say, um, impacts, results from meditation. But the real big one, I think, is this level of acceptance. Things aren't the same as they used to be. And there's this quote here. Ajahn Chah he's not with us anymore. He was a Thai forest monk, became well known in the later 20th century. And it's just this simple. He says, it's like this, right? No, when you just say it's like this, there's no judgment, there's no baggage, there's no anything else with it. And so this is what acceptance looks like, really. We know that MS can't be cured, you don't need me to tell you that. But it can be lived with, it can be accepted. Acceptance is not really a cognitive process. Well, it's not a cognitive process. Oh, I've got MS. That's the cognitive side of it, right? But there's an embodied, felt, lived through experience that must be fully gone through, that must be fully felt and not fought off. Um, and that process probably includes grieving, right? And yeah, it must be, in order to fully accept something, we need to do it time and time and time again. And we need to do it in the body. I talk a lot in my classes around just coming down into the body, because the body takes us away from the busy monkey mind. And the monkey mind's the cognitive process. And the body, I'm sure some of you might have reading it at the moment, is a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And it's all about how trauma is stored, the energetic imprint of trauma is stored down in the body. And the Vipassana meditation course that you may or might not go on, if anyone's interested in it, they talk about the same thing, about how not just our trauma, but uh, all of the basically the energetic imprint of our entire life is, and the way that we behave in all sorts of different circumstances, is kept down in the body. And we need to be able to drop down into the body and to be able to go through this process, this very real, physical, embodied, felt process of essentially grieving for a life that once was, right? And it's, whether it's MS or whether it's relationships or whether it's children, the loss of loved ones, all of these things, acceptance is a physical, embodied process. If we just told ourselves, "Oh yeah, I've accepted it," probably haven't. You know, when we true acceptance, I think I was thinking about this today. You don't need to talk about it. You don't need to prove it to anybody. It just is. It just is. That's why this quote is great. It's like this. It just is. And this is what we try and come to in our meditation. It's not about judgment. It's not about past. It's not about future. It's not about thinking in any way. It just is, right? And that's where the acceptance lies. That's where the peace lies. That's where the tranquility lies. It just is. And yeah, because yeah, we have to keep on coming back. We have to do it time and time again. I'm sure many of us have grieved many things in our lives, and you'll notice that yeah, you might have one big cathartic cry about things, but then it's going to come back. It's probably going to come back, and you're going to grieve many, many times, depending on what that thing is, and how much it has impacted you in your life. So yeah, I've just got this. It's the weed in the river. I like to use this analogy a lot. Meditation. Imagine you're a piece of weed in a river. Like the legal type, and you're a piece of weed floating. Sorry, growing in a river, and your roots anchor you to the floor, to the floor. And so our meditation is like the roots of the piece of weed, the plant. And life is like the river. Sometimes it's rained and the river is in flood and it's buffeting this piece of weed to and fro, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? And the roots of the weed hold it steadfast in the river, right? They stop it from being taken away, being swept away in the flood of life. And at the same time, sometimes life is in drought and there isn't much water around and things are drying out, and we find ourselves searching for sustenance, searching for more. And at that same time, the roots of the weed, they go down into the riverbed. They collect water and they provide that sustenance. So I like that analogy because it goes both ways. And so that's how I like to think of our meditation, as our anchor, as our anchor to here, to now, and our source of growth. Yeah. So, briefly, I just put a few notes here. Yeah, how does meditation actually work? I mentioned before, we are increasing the circuitry of the mind, right? We're increasing the amount of connection between different parts of the brain, and particularly the areas that are involved with like emotional regulation, pain processing, and as I mentioned, self-referential thinking. That's that rumination process. It does reduce stress hormones, particularly cortisol and adrenaline, and it does that through a reduction or more of a controlling of our parasympathetic nervous system. So we have our autonomic nervous system, which is our sympathetic and parasympathetic. In a nutshell, the sympathetic nervous system gets us geared up for fight or flight activity, and it puts adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. Many of the factors in our lives contribute to us being overstimulated and society as well, overstimulated and overactivated in terms of our sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest response. So it's that feeling that we get when we're just had a big meal and we sit on the couch and we relax. Boom, parasympathetic, right? And at that point, our cortisol and adrenaline starts to metabolize in the bloodstream. So again, meditation is about coming to the middle and accepting both of these things and just uh, um, giving some control back to our parasympathetic, right? Not being so overly stimulated with regard to activation of our stress hormones. And again, does that through concentration, through skillful mental states. And I suppose I think my question slide is next. So I just want to leave it with a quote from our friend the Buddha, who taught us a lot, if you want to go down that way. And so he said, experience is preceded by mind, produced by mind, and led by mind. Essentially, what he's saying there is that our experience of the world, everything that we see, touch, taste, do, starts up here in the mind. Our experience of the world is controlled by how we approach it. And so meditation, I'll come back to training skillful mental states. If we put our mind in a skillful state, the result will be good things for us. We will experience the result, the cascade of that skillful mental state in the world around us. So yeah, question slide. Hopefully that's not too much information. Um, maybe there's a million questions. Maybe there's not. I don't know. We'll see. It's difficult not seeing everybody.
I'm here.
Cool.
That was a very, very interesting talk, Fletch, and really well informed. It's interesting the kind of science behind it. I was particularly intrigued with the retraining my robots
Mm.
and, expelling the bits that don't serve us well. And I think that's such a good practice.
Yeah, it's something that I've been reflecting on a lot this year, is that, it's all well and good to have these big realizations about how we are and how things might be, but it's actually the little every daily tasks that that's how we retrain that robot. But the big stuff gives you the realization, realizing that there's an issue, as we say, is what 90% of the problem. What's the last 10%? The last 10% is the daily retraining of the mind, just daily actions that help reinforce those learnings or instill new learnings, instill new ways of looking at things. Yeah.
It's incremental.
Yeah, exactly. Incremental changes. Yeah. Because we got here incrementally, you know, we got here after however many decades of life. And, we at one point we go, well, how did I get here? How did all this happen? You know? And it was a whole bunch of tiny little incremental things that happened. And that's how I often talk about no, I'll go on a rant if I say that. Yeah. That's right.
Would
I'll get some
anybody who's
questions.
here tonight like to make a comment on anything? Um, please throw it into the chat box. It's silent, and it's also 7:35 already. So
Yeah, well, it must have been an informative presentation.
it
That's
was.
good.
So perhaps we could.
Should we do a short meditation?
Oh, here we go. Loved the
Wait.
comment on acceptance. It just is.
Mm. Yeah, it's very powerful. Yeah. It's John Kabat-Zinn. He was one of the people who brought mindfulness to the West. And I'll probably miss the whole quote here. Um, but he defines mindfulness as paying attention in the present moment, non-judgmentally. That's not the whole quote, but the non-judgmentally part is really, really important. Because our whole life, our whole thinking that goes, if you look at your mind and you watch your thoughts, it's all could have, should have, would have, right? It's all how things could be different, which is a judgment call. It's like, I don't like how things are right now. I want it to be different. And that causes suffering. That causes distress and anxiety within ourselves. And so, a really, really important part of this process is training ourselves in non-judgment. It just is nothing more, nothing less. Yeah.
Justice. Thank you so much. All right. If nobody
Thank
else
you.
has any other comments, then I will hand over to you again.
Okay, cool. All right. So here we go. What we're going to do, guys, we're going to do a 15-minute mindfulness of breathing exercise. I think 15, 35 minutes to, yeah, they'll give us a few 10 minutes at the end. Mindfulness of breathing is as taught by the Buddhist tradition. How does this actually work? So what we're going to do, I'm going to get you guys to close your eyes shortly. I've never done this not seeing the people before, so it should be fine though. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna close our eyes, and I'm gonna ask you to bring your attention to your breath. And so, what does that mean? You're gonna hear your breath. You're gonna sense your breath. You might feel changes in your body, rising of the shoulders, the belly, the chest, whatever it might be. Our breath in this exercise is what we call an anchor to the present moment. All right, so it brings us back to the present moment time and time again. Um, it is an anchor, and it moves. The cool thing about the breath is it moves, and it can be controlled. It can be perfectly uncontrolled and natural, and it moves around. So it gives us a kind of a moving target. And so I'm going to ask you to softly place your focus of attention on your breath. When you do that, what you're going to notice is that your mind immediately starts to wander off into a thought. Now, you'll notice I'm going to ask you not to look at your thoughts in this exercise, but at some other point, if you look at your thoughts, you'll notice that they are what we call not present. They are always based in the past or the future. They are thinking about what you might do later, what's for dessert, what am I going to do tomorrow, on the way to work, I've got to get some gas or whatever that is. Or it's thinking about the past. It's going, oh, I shouldn't have done that argument. That was a dumb thing to say, whatever that might be. It's not present, past or future thinking. And so the mind wanders off into these thoughts. At some point, and I'm going to remind you a lot about it during this exercise, at some point, you will notice that your mind has wandered off into a thought. The noticing, so the thought just comes along, and at some point, you'll notice that you're inside it. The noticing that you're in the thought is a moment of mindfulness. It's a moment of presence, a moment of awareness. Right? And so it's not to be judged as a bad thing. It's to be just accepted. If anything, it's a good thing. Right? You've noticed that you've wandered off. When you notice that you've wandered off, you bring your mind back to your breath. And that's the training regime. Mind wanders off, we bring it back to the breath. Mind wanders off, we bring it back to the breath. And you're probably going to do this about 1,000 times in a minute. Especially if you've never meditated before, you'll notice how busy and how jumpy your mind is. And that's okay. This is where everyone's got a starting point. Everyone's got a starting point. We've got to start somewhere. Okay. But it's not a bad thing. It just is. As we go through this exercise, there's a couple of, I suppose, rules. There's no controlling of the breath. Okay, we're not trying to make the breath deeper or longer or shallower or whatever that is, because those are judgment calls. So there's no controlling of the breath. It's just noticing. There's no expectations around how things could or should be. So there's no right or wrong. It's just you and your direct experience of the breath. That's really important. That's what I want you guys to understand. You are just experiencing yourself, and we're trying not to judge that experience. And so to be kind to yourself through this process. Just go easy. If you're gonna notice that your mind wanders off a million times, that's okay. Yeah, that's what the mind does. It's actually what the mind's actually trying to do is make your situation better. It's trying to help you, right? But in that helping, it causes stress and anxiety for you. So this little tip down the bottom here, it says I breathe in, I breathe out, and I'll cue this in for us. But essentially, you can actually say to yourself, just gently, with the awareness still on the breath, you can, as you're breathing in, you might say, I breathe in. As you're breathing out, you just gently say in your mind, I breathe out. And if your mind's very busy, it just gives you a tiny little bit more to focus on, to have your attention on. Okay. But always the primary focus of our attention is the breath. I hope you all understood that because can't ask me a question if you didn't. So, the next thing I'll say, I'm going to just give you a minute while I just grab a quick water. I didn't left my drink bottle inside. I'm going to ask you to set up your posture. Okay, so I want you to be in your chair or on the floor if that's comfortable and accessible for you, in what we call an alert upright position. So I'm just sitting on my sort of settee outdoor area. Some cushions. I've got some cushions underneath me, and I've got a pillow at my back. I've got a backrest. I like to use a backrest. So you might just be in a chair. If you're like lying on your bed, or lying down somewhere, I'd like you to sit up, get some cushions underneath you, and get nice and comfortable. What we're ideally trying to achieve is a little reverse curve in the bottom of the back, just so that we're nice and upright, and we're going to have our hands just clasped gently together like this. So give me 20 seconds to get a water because I've been talking lots, and you get yourselves positioned. Okay. I hope you don't mind. I'm a little bit informal at times. And so, look, we're probably going to do about 12 minutes actually, just because I've rambled. At the end, at the beginning, I've got a little bell. Okay. So at the end, I'll just do it at the end. I'll ring the bell, and you can just gently, you don't have to rush out of your meditation or anything like that. Just as is, nice and easy for you. And I'll cue us out at the end. So, yeah, I hope you trust me because here we go. So you get yourselves, yes, Josie, get yourselves in your position. So when you're ready, on your seat, nice and alert, upright position, close down the eyes, bring your hands to your laps. And I want you to try and find your breath this evening. So just nice, gentle focus on the breath. Notice that your breath goes in. Notice that your breath goes out. And there's nothing more to it than that. You'll probably have already found that your mind has wandered off. All sorts of strange, wonderful, and weird thoughts come up when we're meditating. Sometimes things that we haven't thought about in years. And all we do is allow ourselves nice and gently, softly to come back to the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. mind wanders off and we catch ourselves and we come back. I want you to see if you can just relax the body, relax the shoulders, just consciously soften the body a bit. Maybe even using our breath to breathe down through the body, just to soften, just to relax. Breathing in and then breathing out through the body. I want you to check if you're trying to control your breath in any way. Whether you're thinking that it should be longer, thinking that it should be deeper. And if you are, just let that go. Just noticing, not controlling, just noticing. The breath is completely automatic. We don't need to make it happen. If your mind's really busy, you're finding this difficult, try those phrases. I breathe in on an in-breath, and I breathe out on an out-breath. The attention is still with the breath, but there's also a phrase happening. I breathe in, I breathe out, seeing if that gives you a little bit more of something to anchor to. If we've found ourselves at an inner thought, away thinking, just let the thought go, come back to the breath. That's the training program right there. Seeing if you can feel your breath through the body. Sit with the chest, sit with the belly, sit with the shoulders. Let it in, let it out. No judgment, no control. We're over halfway. You're doing well. If you notice that your mind is busy, that's okay. It's not a problem. It's actually your good mind trying to take care of you. You might even gently say to yourselves that you give permission for yourself to be here doing this practice just for the next few minutes. Nothing else to think about, nothing else to worry about, nothing else to do. Just be here and breathe, experiencing the present moment right here. I breathe in, I breathe out. If that's too much for you, just focus on the breath. Try and be soft. Try and be kind. If you're fighting your mind to stop it running off, I want you to stop. Stop fighting it. Just accept it. It's gone off. It'll come back. It'll go away. It'll come back. We don't want to entertain the thoughts. We don't want to try and engage in them, grow them. But they will keep on coming. I'll guarantee you that. So stop fighting it. Just let it be. Keep coming back to the present moment, to the breath. Last minute. So absolutely no rush. If you're away, if you're enjoying your stillness, I encourage you to stay there. But when you are ready to come back, you can slowly begin to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, stretch out the body. And when you're ready, only when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. So, apologies if some of you are still going. Um, if you are, just you can stay closed eyes, just listening away. But if conscious of the time, so if you do want to take this any further, please check out my website, meditatewithfletch.co.nz. I do have a course starting on the 12th of January, which is an introductory course. That's doing that one online, so you can join from anywhere in the country. If you're wanting to dive deeper already, if meditation's already you already do it all the time, I've got some level 2 courses starting in early January as well. And if 5 or more people want to get together, I'm also happy to do one specifically for you guys. That might be quite cool as a little group. We can do that online as well. So I can do that pretty much any time that works for you. On my website, I also write articles quite a bit. So there's lots of articles there around skillful mental states, benefits of meditation. I'm working on one at the moment about the left and right hemispheres of the brain and how we increase signaling between the hemispheres through meditation. So I've got lots of blog posts you can read. Um, you can sign up for my mailing list to keep in the loop around new courses and stuff that are coming up. And I've got some online meditations on the website as well. So you can find all that and more at meditatewithfletch.co.nz. It's going through a bit of a rebrand, so there's a few things out of place, but I'm sure you'll forgive me for that. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much, Fletcher. It's not easy to completely stop and shut down. Well, it's not for me anyway. So
No, and
really,
we shouldn't expect on the first session that we will either. Yeah.
if anybody has any comments or feedback, please throw them into the chat box. Um, Otherwise, yeah, just like to close off tonight's session. And thank you so very much, Fletcher, for joining us from the sunny Bay of Islands. And yeah, you have a lovely evening. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm sure we'll all take something away, Fletcher, from
I hope
tonight's
so.
talk. So thank you, Paul Marie, which is peaceful night in Māori. Good
Thank
night.
you, everybody.